Welcome back to the show, everybody. Check out these headlines here. Central bank outage. We got a bailout to talk about, too. We got Brian Brooks in the news. We got Kevin O'Leary giving us all the confirmation we need. Standard Custody does a very, very important hire. USD Tether's in the news. And will Congress stop the SEC by regulation through enforcement? We're going to talk about it. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Right now, $977 billion market cap for crypto. Bitcoin, 19,652. Ethereum, 1327. And we see XRP at 49 cents at the time of making this video, ladies and gentlemen. Really quickly here, link to Private Investing Made Simple. Keep your eye on this board, ladies and gentlemen. If you're accredited, and you have to be accredited to participate in this stuff, but I tell you, the window is closing on things like Ripple and others out here. Don't mess around if you're accredited. Click the link underneath the video. Get what you need to get. You know, this stuff is not available forever. As you can see, PolySign was available for just a matter of seconds, and then it was gone. Hopefully, we see more of that. Keep a lookout for that. If you're not accredited, really start thinking about what your life's going to be like once we do get the kind of utility bull run I expect to get in this space and what it can do for all of us going forward. US dollar liquidity swap right here, 3.3 billion, baby. That's what we're talking about. This is a Fed bailout of Credit Suisse right here. New York Fed has swapped 3.1 billion USD with the Swiss National Bank. How about that? Trouble is in the works, ladies and gentlemen. This reminded me of the moment that we're in here. Shout out to James Rule. I believe he said he's got a birthday going on as well. So happy birthday to him as well. He says right here, I made many mixtapes on cassettes back in the day, and sure, I did too. 39 obsolete technologies that will baffle modern generations. Now, I'm not going to get into it, but what it reminded me of is the moment we're in for the financial system. He's referencing here for the point of it is what happened to music and the way we listen and ingest music, right? And now we get streaming, right? So, you know, the same thing is happening in finance, and we're witnessing that vulnerability right here. Australian Central Bank, RBA, suffers a 4-hour industry-wide bank payment transfer outage. It's not a corner store bank. That's Australia's central bank. That's a problem. Now, we've been talking for years on this channel about the fact that the financial system is vulnerable, it's antiquated, it can't scale, there's no transparency, and the rest of it. And you're getting it right here. What options do they have? And look at this, because this speaks to what I believe is the control of regulatory capture right here, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to DAI for this clip and CoinDesk. Take a listen.
So, Cheyenne, Grayscale's not the only company whose spot Bitcoin ETF application has been rejected. What other companies have been impacted?
They've rejected over a dozen of these applications. Wisdom Tree's application got denied again yesterday. That was their second go round, but there's been a bunch.
And here's the deal. And Caitlin Long just made point of this the other day, and we covered it recently, about how she is suing the Fed because they have been waiting for a couple years to get what they need at Custodia Bank. But meanwhile, we witnessed BNY Mellon announce that they're going to do custody of crypto for everyone. That's okay, though, isn't it? You're going to see even more evidence, I believe, that the SEC certainly is suppressing this market and everything in it. So the largest players in the world, which are the banks of Wall Street and Wall Street in general, get to come in and scoop it up. Brian Brooks is going to do it in a much politer way.
What I really think it's about is it's about who controls the financial system.
There you go.
The crypto movement is all about a user-controlled financial system, and that just isn't what the older generation of Democratic leaders believe in. They believe in a more government-focused system that can be more easily surveilled, more easily controlled, that can direct people, toward the things that, the leadership believes is good for them. Whereas the younger generation is much more about using technology to unlock value for all Americans, but that's just not what the leaders from the 60s seem to believe.
Is there a clear priority in Washington when it comes to what really needs to be focused on, whether it's talking about how to define a security versus a token or a commodity, or is it stable coins? You get a sense that there is a theme out there that, is getting the most momentum at this point.
I think the one thing that seems to have a lot of momentum around it has to do with making sure that stable coins don't create the risk of future bank runs. It seems like Democrats and Republicans both agree on that, and that's why I say if the Republicans take the House, I think the McHenry-Waters stablecoin bill has a lot of chance of moving forward because there's that shared belief system. On things like securities law and comprehensive crypto regulation, who owns it, SEC or CFTC, that's so political, I just don't see that happening.
Is there a bit of a turf war going on right now between the agencies?
No, I mean, for a change. I mean, that's always been the case. I think when I was in office, there was a rare moment where you had the Fed, the FDIC, and the OCC all on the same team, really trying to work together. But you don't usually see that even inside of one administration. And getting the nod to be the crypto regulator is a big deal. So even two Democratic agency heads aren't going to want to give that up easily. So for sure, there's a lot of that.
And there you have it. Brian Brooks, laying it down. I tell you, and I think he says it very, very politely here. And I don't want to try to redefine what Brian said, but what my take of that is certainly, there is a turf war going on. And regardless of the fact that they're appointed and coming from the same party, it doesn't mean that they don't want to be able to run the new asset class that's going to be introduced to the world. And then to speak to it further, my interpretation of his earlier statement talking about how, the people in Congress now see the system versus the way the younger generation wants to see it, to me, really comes from their opinion is influenced greatly by the lobby money they get from banks. And here you get it really right here, rubber meets the road, ladies and gentlemen. Kevin O'Leary is going to tell you exactly what we've been saying here on this channel. And a lot of you know this, but this kind of confirmation, I believe, is very important, especially in moments and times like we're in right now, that we know that we're seeing everything the right way. We're tap dancing on this thing. We're river dancing, in fact, on top of this thing until we get what we need to have, and that is clarity. But take a listen to this clip here.
Jamie Dimon really continued to beat down on it. He said very recently that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are nothing but a decentralized Ponzi scheme.
Yep. So let me qualify my statements on this because I'm an investor in JP Morgan as well. I have a lot of respect for him. He may be one of the most successful banking managers in the history of that sector. However, that was an uninformed statement. And it was not helpful at a time when we're trying to drive regulation through two different bills on the Hill right now. I, along with many other private investors, have been spending a lot of time in Washington on this. Essentially what Jamie said there, he was talking his book. This is my interpretation. Mm-hmm. He feels threatened by some of this technology, particularly around payment systems, because banks make money transferring assets. It's a cost of friction in the system. And one of the only reasons that I invested in Circle, and I'm an investor in Circle, I'm supporting their initiative, and I'm a big believer in what stablecoins can do, is it's time to get rid of that friction. And it's not important that banks be protected so that they can make fees from that friction. When you transfer the US dollar into the Swiss franc to buy Nestle on the Zurich exchange, these banks add zero value. There's no value created in ACH transfer fees. If we could use a stablecoin that was regulated and approved by both sides of that transaction, it would be more transparent, it would be much faster, it would definitely be more productive, but above all, I would save millions of dollars. And so would everybody else. I can't wait till we can do that, because that kind of innovation should be supported, and it is. And that's why we're all here. This isn't about, speculation on asset price. This is about reducing the fees of how the world's economies work. More transparent, more productive, completely auditable, regulated, but less expensive. So does Jamie Dimon feel threatened? You're damn right he does. That's a big part of how he makes money. Too bad.
Exactly. Too bad. And remember, Brad Garlinghouse told us a while ago, it's only a few big banks that process cross-border payments for the rest of the banks. Blockchain, XRP Ledger, XRP threatens JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon's business model, because they make money on that friction. The clock is running. You can't stop what's coming. And that is the truth. Jamie Dimon is, in fact, a gatekeeper to the payment system for the banks. And he is threatened by what is out here. And I believe, as much as and listen, I really believe John Deaton had it right. The SEC versus Ripple was, in fact, a weapon. But I believe personally myself that it could only be a weapon if the insiders in the agency, the SEC at the time, understood the true journey and full destination and full-scale intended use of Ripple and XRP. Otherwise, why didn't they sue one of the other 700 to 800 tokens that were on the market at the time? How did they know to sue Ripple and XRP? Because Ripple and XRP's technology works, and it was the real threat. That's how. But also, to go along with this and many different layers of perception and reality here, I believe that they knew that they could use it as a weapon because I believe they understood that it was going to be the chosen one. Now, I'm not suggesting that there'll be one protocol to rule them all, but I am suggesting in my speculation that the XRP ledger will be an adopted value protocol, and it needs to have legal clarity, whether it's through the court or through Congress, and I believe it will get it. Backed by Japanese conglomerate SBI Group and SBI Digital Asset Holdings, SBI Digital Markets leverages U.S. fintech securitizes technology to meet surging institutional demand for digital assets. Now, we know SBI is a big holder in Ripple. Come on in. Now, this is just, USD Tether, boy, I tell you, it's the one thing that won't go away here. In trying to deliver confidence to the market, it reveals its incompetence to me. Tether to replace commercial paper holdings with U.S. Treasury reserves. Oh, so we're admitting that we didn't have the right kind of reserves to begin with. Tether eliminates commercial paper from its reserves. Commercial paper is basically promissory notes from another company. Unsecured promissory notes, by the way. So this entire time, they say they have eliminated $30 billion worth of unsecured commercial paper from its reserves. And all of a sudden, we're supposed to call the trophy shop because today you want to do it right? I think it's because you got the DOJ banging on your door. Now, all of a sudden, we want to flush it? Is that what's going on? Flush it before the battering ram comes in? Hey, we've been doing this right way all along. There's nothing to see here. I got news for you. I will be absolutely shocked if USD Tether is just simply allowed to just show the reserves and off to the races you go. And they just a slap on the wrist and don't do that again. Remember, USD Tether is a private company that is offering a version of the US digital dollar. If you can somehow explain to me how that is not digital counterfeit money when you're not showing the reserves to a regulatory agency to prove that the backing is there, and then you put out articles like this that really are an admission that they never were, but now they are. Oh my goodness. Standard custody policy, ladies and gentlemen, this is a huge, huge hire right here. Former NYDFS regulator Matthew Homer joined Standard Custody and Trust Company Board of Directors. Check it out. Boy, this guy is the right guy for the gig. And we know from Jack McDonald that PolySign Standard Custody are going to be bringing and dealing with a lot of institutional players moving into this space that want exposure here or just simply need help getting tokenized into this market. Digital asset custodian Standard Custody and Trust Company, subsidiary of PolySign, today announced Matthew Homer to its board of directors. Homer joins a distinguished group of leaders from both traditional and decentralized finance. Check out some of his background here. Homer was the inaugural executive deputy superintendent for Research and Innovation Division at the New York Department of Financial Services, known as NYDFS, where his responsibilities included cryptocurrencies and digital assets. He's now a full-time investor and advisor to companies operating in the cryptocurrency and digital asset space. Previously, Homer worked across federal government as a senior policy advisor for digital finance at U.S. Agency for International Development as a policy official at the FDIC, where he focused on emerging technology and consumer protection. Now, I don't know about you. He also served in an advisory roles to the United Nations, World Bank, Aspen Institute, Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance. Now, I'll tell you, I'm like Jack McDonald. I'm thrilled, too, that he's brought on, because you know what this tells me? This tells me that they are trying to get it as right as you possibly can by bringing people to the board that have the experience, right? They have the experience, which speaks to everyone else in all other sectors and agencies, certainly, that we're trying to get it right, right? Even though there's not as much clarity as this space needs, that is a really, really brilliant move right there. Wrath the Conman says Ripple partner TransferGo has hit an all-time high of 5 million customers 1 year after a $50 million Series C funding, opening new received markets in West Africa and in Commonwealth of Independent States, including Armenia and the other one. I don't want to say it. Azerbaijan, I don't know how to say it, and some other words that rhyme with gymnasium. I think that's amazing that happened. In September, they also a signatory on a statement to lower remittance fees to the Ukraine. Good things are happening, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like it's moving slow. And you know, what is the adage about Congress? Everything moves slow until it moves fast, right? And that, I believe, is a very, very crucial moment that is not too far in front of us, probably in the next year. Senator Hickenlooper asked Gary Gensler and the SEC to clarify which digital assets are in fact securities. And it's really trying to get them away from this regulatory through enforcement. And that's not the only thing. And here are the things that are mentioned here: clarifying what types of digital assets are securities, addressing how to issue a list of digital securities, determining what disclosures are necessary for investors to be properly informed, establish a registration regime for digital asset security trading platforms, and setting rules on how trading and custody of digital assets should be carried out. That's what we're talking about. And it's nice to see a senator understand what needs to happen because they get what's going on here. And here's somebody else who gets what's going on. It's Eleanor Terrett, producer for Fox News here, says Congress' new bill should stop the SEC from illegally suing crypto projects. Wouldn't that be nice? Yes, it would. She says that she learned that Congress has the power to ban government agencies from spending on specific things. The omnibus spending bill for fiscal year 2023, one of the few pieces of legislation that has a chance of passing this year, includes provisions. She goes on to say here, one of the provisions in the bill is to stop the Securities Exchange Commission from spending funds gotten from 2023 fiscal year appropriations on the implementation of amendments made to federal proxy voting rules. So, with that understanding, Tarrant questioned the federal government legislature on why it chose not to add provisions in the bill that would prevent the agency from charging crypto companies for security violations without a clear regulatory approach or regulation approach. If Congress is really concerned about the SEC's regulation by enforcement approach to crypto, why don't they add a provision that they would prevent the agency from bringing cases without regulatory clarity or clear regulatory framework in place? You know what? This speaks to what I've been saying all along, because Gary Gensler has the blessing of Congress. That's why. And it's disturbing. But I think it all comes back to the banks. It's effectively using the agency as a weapon, regulatory capture, as I believe, in my personal opinion, that it was also done with the SEC. To give the original legacy firms the advantage. And that's what we see so far. Brief update from Jeremy Hogan. Pay attention. This is I tell you, we are so fortunate to have access to these people in this space like Jeremy and certainly John Deaton and James Filan. I see some confusion, therefore I tweet, he says. On September 29th, Judge Torres overruled the SEC's objections to turning over the Hinman emails, but did not say when they must be turned over. Therefore, he goes on to say the deadline becomes when an appeal of judge's ruling is due. The court is lenient like this because once the documents are handed over, it can't be undone. So that deadline is basically 60 days, maybe longer if they move for reconsideration, which I doubt they do. He says here, if the SEC appeals the ruling, it will take a long time to figure out, months. I personally don't think the SEC will appeal because it risks adverse binding case authority by doing so. In other words, bad facts equal bad law, and these are bad facts. But others have different opinions on that. But keep in mind, what is in those emails is not relevant to the SEC 5 violation, whether XRP is a security. It's probably only really relevant to the fair notice defense. Also, remember that only the SEC moved for summary judgment on the fair notice defense. Ripple did not. Therefore, I believe that Ripple will object to the ruling on fair notice defense issue because discovery is not complete. It wins that objection. So even if the SEC appeals the email order, the Section 5 violation issue will continue forward and be fully briefed by November 15th. That's where we are on this. No matter what happens on the Hinman emails issue, no matter the delay, the main issue will move forward to judgment. If Ripple wins on Section 5 violation, fair notice defense becomes moot. If Ripple loses on Section 5, it can still move for summary judgment on fair notice defense. And I believe, personally, not a lawyer, 12 years short of a law degree, that's why they chose the fair notice defense, because Ripple understood that if there is some kind of a parsing out of a decision of a security designation somewhere, they wanted to ensure that Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse, and Chris Larsen could continue to operate in this space because they did not have fair notice. That's where we are on this day, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe, leave a comment below. This is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. It's just my digital perspectives.